You're listening to the Shared Security Podcast with Tom Eston and Scott Wright, exploring the trust you put in people, apps, and technology.
Hosted by Scott Wright, the Streetwise Security Coach, and Tom Eston, penetration tester and ethical hacker. And sponsored by Security Perspectives, your source for tailored security awareness training and assessment solutions. We bring you stories, advice, and tips to help you make better risk decisions because nobody else can make them for you.
Episode 58. If you're thinking about buying a new set of shades that can do video recording, don't be a snap hole.
Hello and welcome to the Shared Security Podcast, episode 58. I'm Scott Wright, the Streetwise Security Coach from Security Perspectives here in Ottawa, Canada. And as always, I'm joined by the unstoppable Tom Eston from Wolf Blitzer's favorite battleground state of Ohio. How are you doing today, Tom?
I'm doing fine. And yes, the election is behind us. We've all moved on. So
yeah. In 10 years, we'll look back at this and laugh, right?
Yeah, I hear Canada's not accepting any U.S. refugees, though. So.
No, we shut down our immigration website. It's gone.
I heard it crashed on the on election night.
Yeah, it wasn't so graceful shutting down, but it's okay. But it feels like we've been a while since we did a recording, so hopefully you're doing well.
I am doing well. It's staying busy as usual, and I assume you are the same.
Yes. Yeah, very busy, getting ready for the. There's usually a bit of a break in December when people are busy doing other things for some reason. But try and get some stuff done before the end of the year.
Very nice.
Any news or trivia on your side?
No news or trivia. Just it's. I know we have some pretty interesting topics to discuss that have been in the news, so we can get to those and. Our
Excellent.
Audience is waiting with bated breath, I'm sure.
Yeah, they've been waiting quite a while. They're turning blue.
We're not too far behind. I think we're maybe a week or two.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's do a quick run through our agenda today. We've got some Snapchat news.
Yes, we love Snapchat. It's always so fun and exciting, all the different things that happen with them. We'll talk about some new physical glasses that you can buy that integrate with your Snapchat. And I'm sure we'll have some fun talking about that.
And why wouldn't you want to do that? So,
why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And we got like an interesting, useful safety tool from an app that helps people when they're walking home alone.
Yeah, we always like to bring up, these applications that can help protect people. We're starting to see more of these types of applications, so we'll have a good discussion about this one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then we're going to go back and look at the importance of a cell phone number or mobile number.
Yeah, and some of the privacy ramifications of your cell phone number. I just thought this was interesting. Someone did an article about how we leave our cell phone numbers just everywhere, and how we've kind of neglected the protecting maybe the privacy of that phone number, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, there's some interesting implications of that. So good stuff. And then a couple of more techie topics, right? The PoisonTap.
Yeah, this is a device that a gentleman created that kind of shows some of the dangers of leaving your computer locked. I mean, we've talked for years about dangers of leaving your computer unlocked, right? But now there are some dangers of, or potential dangers, I'll say, of leaving your computer locked and unattended that this new device attempts to exploit.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And then finally, we're going to go real deep into what happens when bots start writing code.
Yeah, well, not too deep, but we'll keep it down to a layman's level. But this is, I thought this was an interesting one because we're getting to the point where a lot of applications are now going to be starting to be developed themselves or developed by bots. And what does that mean for security and privacy?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to that one. So let's start it with the Snapchat stuff, a little lighter fare.
Yeah, so Snapchat announced just a couple weeks ago they have now glasses, right? So we all remember what happened with Google Glass, which is Google had announced that that's a failed project. Everybody was going around many years ago buying Google Glass and wearing them about, and they actually had termed these people glass holes, if you remember.
Yes, yes.
Um,
Interesting.
and
Those
there was a
people that
lot.
spent how much were those things?
Oh, they were expensive.
I think they were like
I think about
$1,500 or something.
yeah, $1,000 or something like that. They were pretty
Yeah.
expensive, and
Depends whether it's
Google.
Canadian or American dollars.
Right, there is the difference, yes. Um, but yeah, people were wearing these, and there was actually signs up at like business establishments, like bars and public areas, that were saying like "No Google Glass allowed," like take your glasses off, because people were afraid that they would be recorded, um, in these public areas, or which is a pretty big privacy issue.
Yeah.
So those had failed, mainly because they were expensive and they were cumbersome, and people didn't want to look like glass holes. So here comes Snapchat with their own version of this, which
They look much sleeker and you hardly notice them, right?
yeah, they kind of look like those fancy Ray-Ban sunglasses that you see all the kids wearing these days, and they're cheaper. They're only $130.
Oh,
So
wow.
this is much cheaper, and what it does essentially, just like Google Glass, it can record all of your activities. So you tap the sunglasses and they turn on, and they actually light up, which is interesting. So people know when they're being recorded potentially, and instantly integrates into Snapchat, into your feed.
Yep.
So what's interesting about this is I think we've come to a point where there's so many people now that are recording with their regular mobile phones that I don't know how much of an issue this is really going to be, if that makes any sense.
From an invasion of privacy sort of thing. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, I see people all the time just walking down the street. They're recording, themselves doing selfies, or they're recording, something going on. It's pretty commonplace now to see people with a mobile device out recording something. The only thing that makes it different with a glasses is that it's just kind of awkward, and you'll be looking for that now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah. I mean, and the other thing is too. I mean, it's a little. I think it's probably a little less invasive or concerning because Snapchat limits it to 10 seconds for a clip of video. So you kind of have to keep hitting your head to to keep videotape or video recording, right? So it's there at least is kind of a discontinuity there. It's not like you're constantly recording all the time.
Yeah, Snapchat though has changed recently.
Oh,
I've
really?
noticed
Okay.
this. Yeah, they've actually extended out that time now. They still
Oh,
have that feature where you can have certain snaps that will disappear, which they've had issues with in the past, where they really don't disappear.
yeah, yeah.
And of course, you can't prevent people from screenshotting on the other end when you're
Yeah.
sending photos. But no, they have now this whole timeline feature where you can upload videos, and that are
Oh,
longer than
okay.
10 seconds. So they have,
Really? Okay.
yeah, they've changed their market now, which is
Well, that's
kind
good
of
to know
interesting.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so well, two things with this, I think, is first of all, they're already kind of coining this "don't be a snap hole"
Yeah.
instead of glass hole, right? So be careful if you're one of the few early adopters to this, and of course time will tell. We don't know if this will take off, or it'll be just a fad, or
Yeah. I
this
guess
will stay.
it's inevitable. I think it's a slippery slope, right? As soon as you've got people wearing these things for any length of time, eventually the technology will evolve or competition will come out where it'll be just ongoing, kind of like the life recording stuff, right? Where it's just recording everything
Yeah.
all the time. Anyway, it's coming.
Yeah, and well, it actually is coming out. I think. Well, GoPro, if you're familiar with those, tiny
Yeah.
little cameras, they've actually announced, and I think it's coming out around Christmas, is a tiny little camera that you can wear that will just record everything all the
Hmm.
time. So they're already starting to come out, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of those next year and into the future.
Yep.
These life recordings, as they call it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the Snapchat thing looks. I mean, it's. I see it maybe being a niche thing, right, for
Yeah.
certain activities. Your skateboarding and stuff like that, right? You might be wearing them just to capture your antics.
Yes.
How old I am.
Right. So we won't be seeing you in those glasses anytime soon, is what you're saying.
That's right. Get off my driveway, you darned kids.
That's right. Grumpy old men we are.
Yeah. All right. Well, so yeah, that's the way our society's going. But to deal with some of the dangers of our society, they have people like Companion, which is a new app, right?
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. So this startup has developed an app called Companion, which allows you to, it's basically a personal safety app, is what they call it, which allows you to request a friend or family member to essentially keep you company virtually while you're maybe walking to your car or you're in a shady area of town and you're not quite, you may be followed or you suspect you may be followed or in danger. And essentially what it does is if you drop your phone or if the phone is detected as like a big jarring movement or something like that, it'll basically pop up an alarm that says, are you in danger? Something like that. And then within 15 seconds, it'll actually send off a screeching alert, like an alarm on your phone to hopefully, cause an attacker to
alert
maybe
people nearby, and scare off the attackers. Yeah,
exactly. And then it'll also alert anybody you have set up to watch you. So if you're familiar with Uber or Lyft or any of those applications that kind of track, your GPS in your location as you go through your route when you're in an Uber, it's very similar technology that will alert your friend, and then it will actually send them information to call like the local police or whatever area that they're in, and give the police your location. So this is actually great for like college campuses, and that's one of the business angles that this company is looking at, is integrating with local campus police and giving it out to students, which I think is a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm surprised that it's taken so long, but I think this app may have been around for a little while. I think I might have heard of it a year or so ago, but it's starting to get a lot more popular now.
Yep. Exactly. So, it's just, I think, another example of, the technology that we talk about on the podcast, being used for good purposes
instead of evil.
Right. That's right. And, I think it's good to see more things like this come out.
Yeah, for sure. So keep them coming. Right.
So what about your cell phone, Scott? How secret is your cell phone?
My cell phone is, well, it's, I try to keep it relatively secret. I actually have a separate voicemail number, like the one that we have on our podcast when we announce that you can give voice feedback. That's my voicemail number, which I publish, but I don't publish my cell phone number. But apparently a lot of people are inadvertently or otherwise disclosing their cell phone number to too many people.
Yeah, and it's just an interesting article. We'll have a link in the show notes, but it talks about how we always try to protect things like here in the U.S., your social security number. I'm not sure if Canadians have.
We have a similar thing called a social insurance number, SIN number.
Yeah,
same thing.
So very similar. And, that's always been a source of controversy, and it's actually protected information here in the United States, especially with healthcare laws and such. But, it's interesting how we've put a lot of security around the social security number, but not so much the cell phone number. And now we're starting to use a cell phone number as kind of a key, a database key, right? Of linking people together. And just doing something simple as like Googling your cell phone number, you will most likely get your personal information pulled up, your name, your location, maybe account aliases that you've used on websites. And you might be kind of surprised to see what you find by just searching somebody's phone number.
Yeah, that's true. And I think we talked a while back about how certain sites now are starting to link your number with your credit score, which can be a little bit dangerous.
Yes, that is very interesting. And so just thinking about identity theft and those types of risks that are out there, the message here is to, one, try to protect that information as much as you can. So, I'm a little bit paranoid. So, for example, I don't put my phone number anywhere that is going to be publicly available, like on the internet. I don't put it on Twitter. I don't put it on Facebook. Take simple precautions like that is just some good advice. Be careful where you put it as well in forms and other things. But also, I think there's ways now, like, you can use a Google number, for example. Think of it as like a throwaway phone number in some cases, where the phone, like Google number is pretty cool. It'll actually route to your cell phone or another number, basically like call forwarding, which is kind of nice. So you could give that number away because it's not a permanent number, but it's kind of a throwaway. And there's also some other companies that do similar.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say in the New York Times article that we linked to, I think in the show notes, there's a mention of one called Sideline, which adds a second number to your cell phone, which for individuals is free. I'm not sure how that works, but that's interesting too.
Yeah. So just something to keep aware of, but it's just interesting how that has changed over the years, where now your cell phone number is private information that you should probably protect.
Yeah, it's true that it's not government issued, so it's as far as the government's concerned, they're not doing much to force the protection on it. So it's interesting. Yeah. Okay, so how about when you lock your computer and go for lunch? What happens?
Well, the best security advice we've always given, right, is, lock your computer, go away, come back, and unlock your computer. So people and nosy coworkers don't, put up screensavers and other pictures on your screen that I've seen happen in small workplace environments, or a real attacker trying to access your information. But we've come to a point now where there's actual devices that people can build, like this one called PoisonTap, that can siphon off information from your computer and actually create what's called a man-in-the-middle attack, where it can intercept traffic from your web browser if you just so happen to have a web browser open while you lock your computer.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of an interesting mechanism. It sort of inserts itself as a new network connecting to your computer, right?
Yep, that's right. And then it'll take any web browser that you have open and take any of the unencrypted connections and try to find cookies, authentication cookies, any type of information that would allow somebody else to log into those websites. So it's a good demonstration of what can happen, I guess, leaving your computer unattended, as well as I think the risks of enterprises and businesses not properly securing computers.
I'm sure there's lots of businesses that tell their employees to lock their computer, overnight. Don't log out of it, or some of them that say log out but don't shut down. I'd be curious to know if this probably wouldn't work if you're logged out of your computer in an enterprise, right?
I believe that is correct. You'd have to be logged in.
I think it needs a browser to be running, does it?
Correct.
To work? Yeah.
Yep, exactly. I think it also opens up a bigger discussion, because I don't personally think this is like a huge threat and businesses need to be like so concerned about it, but I think it opens up the conversation of how are you securing your computers, your company's computers to begin with, because it's the same problem we had with USB devices, right?
Yeah,
just in general.
Yeah.
Auto run and plugging in strange USB devices. This is what that essentially simulates.
Yeah.
So I think if, businesses kind of take a look at, how are we securing just our computers in general from plugging in strange devices, right?
Yeah, it's not hard to imagine somebody finding a vulnerability or finding some way to, when you plug in a USB that looks like a new network connection, doing some kind of network protocol, attempts to communicate with the computer, and all of a sudden it has something listening to it and can force its way in that way. So I'm not sure if you can, through group policies in the enterprise, like for Windows computers, if you can stop that or not at this point. But it would be probably a smart thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. And the article has it was interesting seeing the comments that some people were actually posting information of how to restrict automatic, hardware configuration in USBs and things like that. So, cool. But the point is that there's things like this always coming out, and just something to be aware of.
Yep. All right. And then what happens when bots start running code instead of humans.
Yes, it's the evolution of. I'm sure there's a movie reference in there somewhere.
You're going to be out of business then, Tom, because code will be perfect and Veracode.
That is funny because I don't think that will ever be the case because guess what bots are programmed by? They're programmed by humans who also make mistakes. So and I think there'll always be a need for a service like Veracode just because of the vast scale of the problem of insecure code. It's definitely not going away anytime soon, even if bots are writing code. But I found it interesting that, and the author of this article put some really good points about how the shifts in web technology, just from a basic user perspective, like think of all the sites using WordPress right now. So WordPress is a content management system that big organizations like CNN and news organizations use as their base site. And what's interesting is that there's some stats in here about like 26% of the entire web is based off of WordPress. And WordPress is one of those content management systems that are like, we call them plug and play systems, right? Where you don't have to know how to code. You just take different components and stack them together and you have a website, right? If you've heard of Wix is another popular kind of build your own, and they're designed for people that have no experience developing or coding or anything like that, but you can easily just drop and drag different components and look at that, you've got a website that's fully functional. And a lot of these components now are have some self-automated coding technologies, or we'll just say they're getting to the point where they'll be able to self-code because everything is component based and component driven.
Right.
Which is interesting. So you might hear the terms like Node or JavaScript, which we've always heard of JavaScript, but now now more of these web applications are being developed with Node and JavaScript, which are just very easy programming languages that are component based. And I like one of the quotes is, nowadays building a software product with like Node or JavaScript is like, it's like playing with Lego blocks, right? Where you're spending now more time just connecting the blocks together than actually writing the code. And it's really a kind of an evolution of where we're at now with just applications in the web.
Yeah, and I mean, from a security and trust point of view, there's got to be some implications there, right?
Oh, totally. And the other fact too is that developers, they're now being trained on how to use just these component building tools and less, emphasis on how to actually write code or write secure code. So where does kind of security fit into all of this? Are we going to just program bots to write insecure code or secure code? And I think it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But also the other important point is I think we really still lack education at like a school level. So thinking of like high school, college level, there still isn't really a lot of good courses on coding and specifically code security. So we're basically raising a generation of kids that know not a whole lot about security, but yet they know how to build these really cool component type web applications. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. It's I think the pendulum will swing, right? So we'll start to see a lot of insecure built components or component-based solutions that are very hard to secure because of the way they've been modularized. So,
right. So we'll see what happens, but I think eventually there will be more bots of sort that will write base levels of code, and we as humans are going to be having some mechanism to make sure that is secure, because we can't let bots rule the world, right? At least not yet.
No, we cannot. Don't tell them that, though. So.
No, because then we'll have Skynet, if you've seen the Terminator movies, right?
Yeah.
Wow. That would be good.
Actually, I had one other item I was thinking of mentioning on the podcast. I think I posted this on my Facebook account not too long ago, but I discovered an interesting new sort of a spammy attack. I'm not sure if it's how malicious it could be, but basically, if you have an iCloud account, I discovered that I could receive a meeting invitation from somebody I don't know that automatically gets put into my iCloud calendar. And of course, it's set up as a daily meeting, but it's just a spam thing, like Ray-Ban sunglasses, I think it was, right? And so this thing shows up in your calendar every day. And if you want to, delete it, it ends up basically notifying the sender, that you did that, which tells them it was an active account. So it's kind of a catch-22. Once you have this kind of a meeting invite processed and in your calendar, it's kind of a tricky thing to get rid of. So what I discovered is that it's a default setting in the iCloud calendar. If you were to log into your iCloud account on the web, you can go into the settings and under advanced calendar settings, you can tell it not to automatically, I think it's called in-app processing or something like that. Instead of that, it'll just send it as an email, like a normal calendar invite, which means you have to explicitly accept it, open it and accept it to the calendar.
Okay.
So that way you can avoid it. So I'd recommend, if you do have an iCloud account that is the calendar is enabled in, then I'd recommend you go in and turn that back to email only, so that these kinds of things don't automatically end up in your calendar, which are really annoying.
Yeah. So I wonder if it's the same for like Google Calendar or other.
Yeah, I don't know.
apps.
I haven't. I have used Google Calendar, but I don't know if I've seen that.
Yeah.
Or if that's a default setting in it or not.
That is
I
interesting.
just thought I'd let people know.
Yeah. Good advice.
Okay, so I think that wraps up our content for today, and we'll start saving up more tomorrow.
That's right. And as always, you can send feedback to feedback@sharedsecurity.net, or you can always catch us on Twitter and Facebook. And we have links to all that, of course, on our sharedsecurity.net webpage.
And Tom's on Twitter as Agent0x0, and I'm there as StreetSec. So we look forward to hearing from you, and we hope you enjoy the next few weeks or so before our next podcast.
All right.
Goodbye,
Thanks for
everybody.
listening.